In the quietest corners of our minds, there lives a dream, a vision so vivid, so perfect, that we can almost taste it. We can feel it in our bones. It's the kind of dream that shapes us before we even know who we are, before we understand that not all dreams survive the collision with reality. This is the story of one woman's dream, and what happened when the world refused to let it come true. Her name is Emily, and her dream was simpler than most, yet somehow more fragile than she could have ever imagined. Picture this: a white picket fence, the kind you see in old movies, the kind that promises safety, stability, normalcy. Emily had been picturing this since she was a girl. Perhaps it was something she saw in a window display. Perhaps it was whispered to her by the women in her family, passed down like an heirloom, a recipe for happiness that had been tested and proven through generations. A white picket fence, a kind man, someone with gentle hands and a gentle heart, and one baby, just one. She didn't need the world. She didn't need wealth or fame or recognition. She didn't need to travel to distant countries or build empires. Emily's dream was achingly ordinary, which is precisely why it felt so necessary. One baby, a kind man, forever. These were the words she whispered to herself in the darkness of teenage nights. These were the promises she made to the universe. This was the contract she believed she had signed with fate itself. And for years, for so many years, Emily believed in the power of this dream. She believed that if you held it close enough, tended to it like a garden, protected it like something sacred, it would somehow find its way to you. She was 25 years old, and she had never questioned whether this dream would come true. She had only wondered when. Community college is a place where futures are forged, or at least attempted. It's a place where ordinary people gather to transform themselves into slightly less ordinary versions of themselves. It's a hallway filled with possibility and uncertainty, where every face could contain a story, and every story could change your life. Emily walked those hallways with her dream tucked beneath her ribs like a second heartbeat. She attended her classes, she took her notes, she smiled at classmates and imagined futures with some of them, brief, fleeting fantasies that never meant anything. And then there was Ryan. He wasn't wearing a sign that said, "This man will change your life." He wasn't the most handsome boy in the college. He wasn't the richest or the most popular. But he had something else, something that, in retrospect, Emily would come to understand was far more dangerous than any conventional attraction. He had words.
Ryan played guitar. There's something about a man who plays guitar that speaks directly to the part of a woman's heart that still believes in romance. The guitar is an instrument of vulnerability. It's hard to play guitar and hide. Your hands betray your nervousness. Your voice cracks when you're uncertain. A man with a guitar is, by definition, a man willing to be seen. Emily was drawn to him like a flower turning toward light, and Ryan, it seemed, was drawn to her in return. He was sweet in the way that matters. He remembered details about her life. He asked follow-up questions. He seemed genuinely interested in what she thought, what she felt, what she wanted from the world. And most importantly, and this is the part that would haunt her later, he said he wanted the same things. "I want a simple life," he told her one evening, his guitar resting against his leg, his eyes holding hers with an intensity that felt like honesty. A good woman, kids maybe, a home, something real. Emily's breath had caught in her throat. Here it was, the moment she had been waiting for, the moment when the dream stopped being a whisper in the darkness and started becoming a possibility, a tangible, real, achievable possibility. Ryan wanted what she wanted. For 1 year they were together. 1 year of stolen kisses between classes, 1 year of late-night phone calls where they talked about everything and nothing, 1 year of imagining a future so vivid that Emily could see it, could see the kitchen they would have, the color of the walls, the way sunlight would fall across their dinner table. But here's what Emily didn't know, what she couldn't have known. A man can say he wants something and still not want it when it appears. A man can believe he wants something until the moment it becomes real and then discover that what he wanted was the idea of it, not the actual weight and consequence of it. A man can tell you he wants forever while secretly planning an escape route. The dream was so close now. Emily could feel it. She could sense it the way animals sense change in weather. Something was shifting. Something was beginning. And for a moment, just a moment, she thought it was the beginning of everything she had ever wanted. She didn't know it was actually the beginning of the end. Every story has a moment of innocence before the fall, a moment when the protagonist doesn't yet know that their life is about to splinter into before and after. Emily had lived in that moment for 25 years. She had protected that moment. She had nourished it and believed in it and held it close to her chest like a prayer. But that moment was about to end, and nothing, not her love, not her faith, not her white picket fence, would be able to stop it.
There are moments in a person's life when time seems to slow down, when the world holds its breath, when everything hinges on a single second, and in that second, your entire future pivots on an axis you never saw coming. For Emily, that moment arrived on an ordinary day. It wasn't a day marked by storms or thunder. It wasn't a day when the sky turned dark or when birds stopped singing. It was just a regular day, the kind of day that usually means nothing, the kind of day you forget the moment it ends. But this day, this ordinary, unremarkable day, would become the dividing line between Emily's life before and her life after. She had known for weeks. Her body had been whispering secrets that her mind was only beginning to understand. The signs were subtle at first, a tenderness in places she couldn't explain, a fatigue that seemed to settle in her bones like fog, a nausea that came and went like an unwanted visitor. But Emily hadn't needed the physical signs to know what was happening. She had known the moment she felt it, that strange, indescribable flutter that only a woman can recognize. That moment when her body spoke a truth before her mind could process it. She was pregnant. The word itself felt impossible, too big, too real, too final. For weeks, she had lived with this knowledge burning inside her like a secret she was terrified to speak aloud. She had walked around campus with this secret. She had eaten lunch with friends with this secret. She had gone to work, smiled at customers, counted change with this secret pressing against her sternum like a weight. Part of her wanted to keep it there forever. In the safety of silence, it was still just a possibility. It was still something that might not be real. But Emily knew that this couldn't last. This knowledge was too large to contain. It was growing, just like the child growing inside her. Soon, everyone would know. Soon, it would stop being a secret and start being a fact. And she had to tell him first. Ryan. The man who said he wanted the same things, the man who had promised her a simple life, the man who had told her more than once that he saw a future with her in it. She had to tell Ryan. For days, Emily rehearsed this conversation in her mind. She imagined different versions of it. In some versions, Ryan was shocked but happy. In some versions, he was surprised but quickly moved past the surprise into excitement. In some versions, the ones she let herself believe, he pulled her close and whispered that they would figure this out together, that they were a team now, that they were going to be a family. She built entire futures in her imagination, futures where this news was received with love instead of rejection, futures where Ryan's first reaction was joy instead of fear, because Emily was still, at her core, a woman who believed in the power of hope, who believed that if you wanted something badly enough, if you believed in it fervently enough, the universe would conspire to make it real. She was about to learn that the universe doesn't care what you believe.
It was after class. The day was clear. The weather was mild. Nothing in the atmosphere suggested that this would be the day her entire life would change direction. Nothing hinted at the abyss that was about to open at her feet. They got into his car, his old car that still smelled like the cologne he wore and the leather seats that were slightly cracked from years of sun exposure. It was a car Emily had sat in 100 times, a car she associated with goodnight kisses and late-night conversations, a car that had held some of the best moments of her life. Today, it would hold one of the worst. Emily had never been good at dramatic pauses. She had never been the kind of person who could drag out a story for effect. She was direct, she was honest, she was vulnerable in the way that people who believe in truth tend to be. So she just said it. I'm pregnant. 2 words, 2 simple words, 2 words that should have been joyful, 2 words that should have been shared with celebration, with plans, with future building and hope. Instead, they landed in the car like stones dropped into still water. And then Ryan spoke. This isn't what I want. 6 words, that's all it took. 6 words to unmake a year of promises. 6 words to erase 1,000 imagined futures. 6 words to transform Emily's entire understanding of what love meant, what promises meant, what belief itself meant. This isn't what I want. The words hung in the air between them like a verdict, like a door slamming, like the end of a story that Emily had been certain would have a different ending. Emily had expected many things. She had expected shock, yes. She had expected that he might need time to process. She had expected initial resistance, perhaps, followed by acceptance and then adaptation. This is how adults handle surprising information. They adapt, they adjust, they figure it out. But she had not expected complete rejection. She had not expected the way he looked at her, not with love, but with something that looked uncomfortably close to resentment. She had not expected the silence that followed, thick and suffocating. She had not expected the feeling that in that single moment, she had become a problem, an obstacle, a mistake. She had become something he didn't want. That night, she tried to call him. Her hands were shaking as she dialed, but the call wouldn't go through. She tried again. Same result. By morning, she understood. He had blocked her number. Not while they were in the car, but sometime after he left her, sometime after dropping her off and returning to whatever life he was going to live without her. He had blocked her. It was such a small action, technically, a few taps on a phone screen, a single button press. But in those few taps, he had erased her, not just from her contacts, but from his life. He had drawn a line and made it clear there was no going back. There was no conversation to be had. There was no future in which they would figure this out together. There was only silence and absence, and the overwhelming realization that Emily had been wrong about everything. In the aftermath of devastation, people often search for meaning. They search for the moment when things went wrong. They search for the thing they did, the thing they said, the thing they should have done differently. They search for a way to take responsibility, because responsibility, at least, offers the illusion of control. Emily would spend many sleepless nights doing exactly this. But in this moment, in the immediate aftermath of rejection, she could only feel one thing: complete, total, consuming betrayal.
There is a particular kind of darkness that comes when your entire understanding of yourself becomes suspect. When you begin to question not just what you did, but who you are. When the story you had been telling yourself about your own life suddenly feels like a lie you told yourself. This is the darkness Emily descended into. In the days and weeks that followed Ryan's rejection, Emily existed in a state of suspended grief. She moved through the world like a ghost moving through walls, present but not really there, present but untouched by anything around her. She woke up in the morning and thought, I have to tell people I'm pregnant and alone. She went to sleep at night and thought, I'm pregnant and alone. The reality was inescapable. It was everywhere. It was in every thought, every breath, every moment of consciousness. But there was another voice, too, a much crueler voice. The voice that whispered, "You're stupid. You believed something foolish. You let yourself imagine a future that was never real. You did this to yourself." Shame is a funny thing. It's one of the most toxic emotions a human being can experience because it doesn't just attack the thing you did, it attacks the person you are. It tells you that you are fundamentally broken, fundamentally unlovable, fundamentally deserving of this pain. Emily felt this shame with an intensity that almost eclipsed the physical pregnancy. The physical changes, the nausea, the exhaustion, the way her body was betraying her and transforming into something unrecognizable, at least made sense. At least they had a biological explanation. But the shame? The shame seemed to have no explanation. It just was. It existed in her chest like a tumor, spreading outward, poisoning everything it touched. She cried. For weeks, she cried. Not the kind of crying that is cathartic or cleansing, not the kind of crying that releases something and allows you to move forward. This was the kind of crying that came from a place of complete dissolution. This was the crying of someone who had believed in something with her whole heart and was being systematically disabused of that belief. Her parents found her in her room one afternoon, curled up on the bed, unable to speak, unable to explain, unable to articulate the magnitude of her loss. They held her, they tried to comfort her, but they were also, Emily could sense this in the way they looked at her, in the careful way they chose their words, disappointed. Not cruel, not angry, but disappointed. And somehow, that was worse. Her father had believed in her potential. He had supported her college education. He had believed that she was going to do something with her life, something significant, something that would make her happy. And now, at 25 years old, Emily was returning to her childhood home, pregnant and alone. This was not the narrative any of them had written for her story. "We'll help," her mother said. "We'll be here. You won't be alone in this." But there was a distance in the words, a hesitation, because even as they committed to helping, Emily understood that they were also grieving. They were grieving the daughter who would have finished college, the daughter who would have had a career first, then a marriage, then a child, in that proper order, the order that society had deemed correct and acceptable. Instead, they had a daughter who had been cast aside by a man who claimed to want the same future, and now they would all have to adjust their expectations. They would all have to rewrite their stories. Emily existed in a strange liminal space during those months. She was too far along to pretend she wasn't pregnant. People could see it. They could see the expanding belly, the way her body was reshaping itself. But she was also not yet visibly changed enough for the pregnancy to be undeniable. There was still a moment in every interaction when people had to process what they were seeing. She could watch them do it. She could see the moment they understood. She could see the quick mental recalculation. Unmarried, pregnant, young. The judgments didn't need to be spoken. They were written in the pauses, in the careful neutrality of expressions, in the way some people suddenly became very formal with her, as if pregnancy without a husband was a contagious disease. Only a few people asked about Ryan. Emily appreciated the tactfulness, even as she felt the curiosity beneath it. Where was he? Why wasn't he involved? What had happened? She didn't have answers that made her feel anything other than ashamed. Weeks became months. Seasons changed. The baby grew inside her. Emily could feel it now, real movements, not just flutters. She would lie in bed at night with her hand on her belly and feel this small person rolling and stretching and preparing to enter a world that her father would never acknowledge, a world where she would grow up knowing that her father had chosen absence. And Emily would think about this child, this small, innocent, unborn child, and she would think, what kind of world is this where something so pure can be created by something so painful? How is it possible that love could come from rejection? But it was. She could feel it, growing stronger every day, a love that was fierce and protective and completely unlike any emotion she had ever experienced. Late one night, unable to sleep, Emily found herself on her parents' computer, looking at her social media. She typed Ryan's name, knowing it was a mistake even as she did it. His profile was there. He had deleted the photos of them together. She noticed that immediately. But there was a new photo, Ryan and a new girl, smiling, happy, moving on with the kind of effortlessness that Emily could barely fathom. He looks happy, she thought, like none of this happened, like I didn't happen. And in that moment, Emily understood something that would take her years to fully process. Some people have the ability to simply erase what they don't want to deal with. They don't change, they don't grow, they don't learn. They just move on to the next chapter, carrying nothing from the previous one. Ryan had moved on, but Emily couldn't. Because Emily's rejection wasn't something she could compartmentalize or put behind her. Emily's rejection had a heartbeat. By month 7 of her pregnancy, Emily had stopped asking why. She had stopped trying to understand how someone could look her in the eye and tell her he wanted a future with her, and then refuse to acknowledge that future when it arrived. She had stopped crying, at least, but she had not stopped being broken. The breaking had become her baseline. The breaking had become her normal. She had settled into it the way you settle into a life you never wanted. And she moved through her days in a fog, attending prenatal appointments alone, purchasing baby items alone, imagining a future alone. But beneath the breaking, something else was stirring, something that no one could predict, something that would transform her completely, something that had no name yet, but it was coming. Sometimes the deepest darkness comes right before the light breaks through. Sometimes you have to be broken completely before you can rebuild yourself into something stronger, something truer, something that no one could ever break again. Emily didn't know this yet, but she was about to find out.
Lily. She had chosen the name months ago, before the rejection, before the shame, before the breaking. Lily. A flower that blooms despite the darkness. A flower that grows from bulbs buried in dirt and cold soil. A flower that emerges in spring as if nothing could have ever stopped it. Looking at her daughter, Emily understood why she had chosen this name. For the first time since that day in the car when Ryan had spoken those 6 words, Emily felt something other than pain. She felt purpose. She felt clarity. She felt the emerging understanding that her life had not been ruined. It had been redirected. The dream she had been chasing, the white picket fence, the kind man, the simple life, had exploded into pieces. But from those pieces, something new was being built. Something that didn't require a man to make it real. Something that was entirely, completely, powerfully hers. Lily was hers. This small, perfect, innocent child was entirely hers. As the days turned into weeks, Emily discovered a rhythm she didn't know she could sustain. Her mother helped. Her parents brought her meals. They took shifts at night so Emily could sleep. And during those moments when she could not sleep, when she was up at 3 a.m. feeding a hungry infant, Emily had time to think. She thought about Ryan. She thought about how he would never know this moment, how he would never know the way his daughter's hand wrapped around his finger, how he would never know the feeling of being needed so completely by another human being. And Emily felt something unexpected. She felt sad for him, not angry, not bitter, but genuinely sad. because he had chosen absence, and absence would cost him something he could never get back. 3 months later, Emily returned to work. Her mother watched Lily during the day. Emily served coffee at a cafe and smiled at customers and performed the normal rituals of daily life. But something had changed, something fundamental. She was still sad, she was still struggling. The financial burden of single parenthood was very real. The exhaustion was overwhelming. The nights were still hard. The future was still uncertain. But she was no longer broken. Somehow, in bringing new life into the world, Emily had found her own life again. Somehow, in nurturing her daughter, she was also nurturing herself. Somehow, in loving something that came from pain, she had transformed the pain into something that meant something. Lily learned to track movement. Lily learned to smile. Lily learned at a surprisingly early age to recognize her mother's voice and come to attention at the sound of it. And Emily learned something too. She learned that love doesn't have to be reciprocated to be real. She learned that strength doesn't come from having what you want. It comes from creating something beautiful with what you're given. She learned, most importantly, that she was not the woman who had sat in that car and accepted rejection as the end of her story. She was someone else now, someone stronger, someone who had passed through fire and emerged transformed. Lily would grow. Emily would watch her grow, and every milestone, every first word, every first step, every moment of development and discovery would be another reminder that this pain, this rejection, this breaking had not been the end. It had been a beginning, and the best chapters of Emily's story were still being written.
Years later, Lily was 5. Emily had moved them into a better apartment. She had been promoted at the cafe. She was taking night classes, trying to move towards something better. Life was still hard, but it was moving. It was progressing. And then, one afternoon at the grocery store, something happened that Emily had been both dreading and preparing for her entire life. They were in the produce section, Emily picking out vegetables for dinner. Lily was in the shopping cart, singing softly to herself. And then Emily felt her daughter's attention shift. Lily had spotted a man. He was across the aisle, his back to them, but something about his posture, the way he held himself, made Lily go still. The man was not Ryan. Emily knew immediately it wasn't him, but he was similar enough to make Lily curious, similar enough to trigger recognition of something she had never actually known. "Mama," Lily whispered. "Yes, baby? Is that Daddy?" Time stopped. The world held its breath. And Emily, this woman who had been broken and rebuilt, who had learned to create beauty from pain, felt her heart stop in her chest. This was the moment. This was the question she had been preparing for since the day she had told Ryan she was pregnant. This was the moment when her past would collide with her daughter's present. Emily looked at her daughter. She looked at her precious, perfect, innocent child who had somehow survived the experience of being unwanted before she was even born, and she made a choice. She smiled. Not a smile that was sad, not a smile that was angry, but a smile that was complete and true. "No, sweetie," she said, "that's not Daddy. But you know what? You have something even better. You have the best mom." And she said it like she believed it. Because she did. Now, years later, Emily stands at the window of her small apartment. Outside, on the sill that had once held just a few struggling flowers, there is now a small garden. Herbs grow in terracotta pots. Flowers bloom in vibrant colors. And Lily is older now, tall enough to reach the windowsill without a stool, helps her mother tend to them. Their hands work in synchronization. They have been doing this for so long now that they move like dancers, knowing exactly what the other person will do next. They water, they pull weeds, they speak softly to the plants about growing and thriving and becoming what they are meant to become.
And in these moments, Emily feels something that she couldn't have imagined on that day in the car when Ryan rejected her. She feels peace.
Emily's parents have come to accept their role as grandparents to a child that, biologically, they had no part in creating. They have come to understand that their story doesn't have to look the way they imagined it. Lily's story doesn't have to look the way anyone imagined it. Lily is loved. Ryan still doesn't ask about her. Emily sees his life continue on social media. New jobs, new relationships, a life that seems, on the surface, successful. But he will never know Lily. He will never know the specific way she laughs. He will never know how smart she is, how kind she is, how fierce she is. He will never know the person she is becoming. And that is his loss. The white picket fence that Emily had dreamed of as a girl was never real. It was never going to be real, because the world doesn't work that way. Life doesn't work that way. Love doesn't work that way. But what is real is this: a woman who was broken and learned to rebuild herself, a child who was rejected before birth and learned to love fiercely, a small apartment with flowers on the windowsill, hands, one large, one small, working together to create beauty. This is the real dream. This is the real fairy tale. Not the one that comes to you, but the one you create. Some women spend their whole lives waiting for a man to complete them. Emily stopped waiting. She completed herself. And in doing so, she created something far more powerful than any marriage could ever be. She created a life. She created a home. She created a daughter who would grow up knowing that when the world told her she wasn't wanted, her mother said, "You are the most wanted person I know." And on a windowsill, in a small apartment, in a city full of people chasing white picket fences and kind men and simple dreams, two people, a mother and a daughter, tend to a garden. The flowers bloom regardless of who said what. The plants grow regardless of who wanted what. Life continues, beautiful and fierce and true, in the hands of those brave enough to create it. This is Emily's story, not the story she planned, but the story she earned. And it is enough. It has always been enough.